Good morning, everybody. I gotta finish Jonah. I'm gonna upload these like I've been doing the last few days, and then see how many I make today. Let me give you a couple of things. The last few days, you've seen me talk about a lot of stuff that I've heard and is known. It's not just me. Many of my friends over the years, it's one of the things the guys, one time Cameron was upset because a lot of my friends used to tell me it surprised them to see various people in authority that would either use drugs with some of the friends they knew or with them, or it surprised them over the years. And I used to be kind of hesitant. And sometimes I remember Cameron got mad once because I used to say, well, I know there's so many things that go on, but I don't think that much. No, Brother John, you don't know it. Last night on the news, should we title that? There's no titles on these. So you hear me talking about corruption having to do with, this goes on across the country for those who are not familiar, but we're ranked number 2, corrupt. Nueces County is. Yesterday's video, how often do I mention the name Janet Reno? Go back and Google it. I've only spoken about that name, Janet Reno, a few times when I mentioned that study that came out a few years ago that ranked Nueces County number 2 most corrupt behind Dade County, Florida, which used to be Janet Reno, where she was in charge. Right when I mentioned her name on that video, she died. Okay? Janet Reno died. I saw the news that night. I mean, it was when I was making the videos. Just strange. I said, basically, that's the most corrupt. So, what do we have last night? After, when people talk about issues like this, those that are involved in these things, you have spin in political things. Today's the campaign, the election. You also have spin that's used in these types of things. So if somebody is exposing possible collusion and drug dealing and all these things, which is very common, that everybody on the street knows this goes on with officials, what you would want to do is have a quick story that would be put out in the media showing how tough you are on drugs. Last night on the news, local news, and plus I look on the sites, they had a huge drug bust. Okay? Strange, because I know they did a thing on Flower Bluff once. They called it the meth capital of the world, or the country. So there's so much drug dealing everybody's very familiar with. So on the news, this big drug bust. This was the drug bust. Okay? What is it? The Matrix? To swallow which pill you want to swallow. But if you swallow the one, you're going to see everything. You might not like it. Okay. They confiscated about $500,000 in cash. Look, that's a big drug operation, okay? Because it was marijuana. So that means you're doing a lot of marijuana you're selling. Then they showed a ton of pot all bagged up, a lot, okay? This is a very big drug operation for a little house that was in the city. And then they showed all the weapons they confiscated, okay? If you have a drug operation, normally you have neighbors complain and complain and complain. This has happened where I live. They say, look, they get a drug operation in this house, and then they scope it out over a period of time, and it's kind of an operation like that. And then neighbors will say people are coming at all that. This drug bust was not that. As a matter of fact, this is how the media reported how the cops did a huge drug bust yesterday, needing to get something in the media possibly. They said they were looking for a suspicious person in the neighborhood. And they were just going door to door knocking, maybe. They said when they knocked on one door, they smelled pot. That's common. I've been helping Jimmy D. When Jimmy D, I wasn't with him that day, but he said, oh, the cops came yesterday. This is the old apartment. They smelled pot. And Jimmy said, yes, we smoked a joint. Look, they were like, okay, no big deal. I mean, there was no, that's common. This happened a while ago, the old apartment Jimmy's living. But in this drug bust, they said they smelled pot. And the two boys living there are like 22 and 23. Okay? You wouldn't think a big $1 million marijuana operation. There were no complaints from residents. Cars coming all night. No. They were just knocking door to door, and then when they knocked on this door, they smelled pot. And they asked the kids, can we come in and search your residence? And lo and behold, the kids said, sure. And they went in and found $500,000 of cash, bundles of marijuana, valuing a lot more than that. And, over $1 million maybe. They showed it on the news. All the weapons and everything. What kind of drug bust is that? And these two boys were running such a massive operation. That's a lot of money for just pot dealer. What else could it be? I don't know. Were they supposed to distribute some of that money to people that are in collusion and corruption? And they didn't? Because that is the strangest drug bust I've ever heard of. Just look at that, okay? You look at that. But when it's put out in the media, sure looks like it's... No. When I had reported, before we have the chief that we have now, who I don't trust this chief, Markle, we had Chief Simpson. And he was the only chief, actually, that I had emailed about Flower Bluff and cop collusion, okay? I even said there were many stories I heard, Chief, about a certain officer, but in general I said about problems. I said I used to not believe them, but now I'm starting to wonder. The day after that email was when an officer tried to run me off Oso Bridge. So Chief Simpson was the only one that I actually wrote to, emailed, okay? The only one. The chief was killed in a strange manner. You've seen me talk about it in some of the Psalms I read when the chief passed away and all. But he was on a motorcycle, and somebody driving a truck fell asleep and swerved into his motorcycle. And that younger person could have fell asleep and swerved at any time on the highway at that whole day. But he swerved at the moment that Simpson was passing him up. And the chief was killed. And I don't know. They said they investigated. I don't know. But it made me think over time. Okay? I'm going to just upload this. I could teach Samuel, but these have got to go short. Okay? I'm going to finish Jonah. I read a good chapter in Samuel, but I want to wrap up the Samuel study in the next week. Jonah's going to be short. I'm going to do the next 2 chapters. I don't even know if I posted Jonah 1 yet. I think I did. So I've got a couple of little studies I have to wrap up. So I wanted you to think. Go look. Those of you that watch these videos and you're not from the local area, you could go online to the local Corpus Christi News and look at that drug bust that was just yesterday. It's the strangest drug bust in the world. And 2 young boys, 22 and 23, saying, sure, come on in, and running an operation of that much money. You'll see the pictures of that drug bust on KRIS TV, online, KIII or KIII TV, KZTV, KolarTimes.com. These are all online news sites which I actually look at every day. Okay, that's just food for thought. Okay, this is number 1 for today.